What is happening out there, rotoscouts baseball fans? Sometimes you just got to click the button and just turn the show on and just go live, you know? Sitting here just trying to get everything organized, think I got all the lineups in, put the cat away. Feels like there's something missing. Turned the mic on, pretty sure. Yeah, mic's on, camera's on. Pretty sure we're good. Not really sure, but like I said, sometimes you just fire away, click the go live button and see what happens. And that's what we did. Gotta mute this. Maybe that was what it was. Anyway, welcome to the Monday show, gang. Took the weekend off. Didn't intend to take the weekend off from doing shows. Still did all the coverage over on the website with the writing and everything from the articles, but that Saturday schedule just completely screwed me for when could I fit a show in, how could I make it work. I was going to the Yankee game at night, and I figured I was all right there because I thought it would be like an afternoon start, 4 o'clock slates maybe, or maybe both going at 1. The idea that they went 1 at 1, 1 at 4, the 4 o'clock went through the 10 o'clock games. It was just what a messy slate that was. So that was a nightmare for coverage. It was fun. I got to write about 15 games on Saturday morning before going to the Yankees game, which was a blast. Yanks won, of course. It was the one of the weekend set that they won. So that was fun. Had a few beers with my buddy Brian up at the stadium. Had a good time. But then came back Sunday morning, woke up and found out that they moved that game to 12:40, changed the start time of the slate completely by about 50 minutes or so. So I lost the Sunday show. But welcome back to everybody who's back here. Looks like we got 5 or 6 people hanging out in here now. Spread the word. Let the gang know that the show's on. I'm sure some people will trickle in as we start. But let me just jump in here. We got an interesting 7-gamer on deck today, so I think it's going to be a fun one to talk through. And I will just fire this up so that, well, nope, not that one. I got to live up here a little bit. There we go. So I'll just kind of jump into it. I think it's a slate it's somewhat short on pitching. I think there's good pitching options, but only a few of them, and I think it's going to be kind of concentrated pitching ownership. And I don't really know that there are all that many other places to go. Like, you certainly don't want to go to a guy like Connor Siebold here in this first game, in this Rockies-Red Sox game. It's the first one, right? Yeah. So we've got the Rockies coming in as pretty big underdogs here. Great hitting environment overall, but I think they're running into the buzzsaw that is James Paxton right now. 33% strikeout rate for Paxton in his 26 innings, 5 starts. Looking at the Rockies earlier in the day, they are, them against left-handed pitching, by far the worst WRC plus against any hitting, any handedness or anything like that. By far, it was like a 61, I think, WRC plus against lefties for them. And like the next lowest rate, I think, is probably them against righties, and it was in like the 70s. But it just, the point is, Rockies against lefties, particularly Rockies on the road, like we know, just tragically bad. They lost Charlie Blackmon over the weekend, broken hand. I think it's like 4 to 6 weeks for Charlie, so this lineup got even worse. Still no Chris Bryant in it. So it's Ryan McMahon. It's a handful of kids, and the kids I've talked about a little bit over the last couple of weeks. I actually like a couple of these kids. Nolan Jones, I think, is a really interesting rookie. He's been raking. I actually kept him in that Dynasty League, gave him a little contract for the year as a little figure-it-out contract, and then they sent him down. He was supposed to start the year with the big squad. That's when they signed Profar in spring training, sent him down. That's why I was all bitter about Profar and remained that way. But it's nice to see him. He's back in the bigs now and has been raking over 54 plate appearances. 360, 407, 680, a 175 WRC plus, 4 homers on the season, 4 stolen bases too in the tiny sample. Not bad at all. Eloyers Montero and Brenton Doyle from the right side, 2 premium rookie guys on the right side. Doyle's hit for a little bit of power so far, 4 home runs, 8 stolen bases, and only 120 plate appearances. Pretty interesting. So I think he's a decent value piece if you're going to Rockies. And then Montero is a highly regarded prospect who hasn't really hit yet. Coco Montez above him, not available on either site, unfortunately. Going to be somewhat interesting, I think, as a rookie. He hit a home run over the weekend. He had 3 plate appearances over the weekend. I'm surprised they didn't get him into either slate. I figured DraftKings would at least have him. But Montez not there, but he'll be in the actual lineup. So you're dealing with an 8-man Rockies lineup. They're in the worst position here. I expect a big start out of Paxton. So all of that was to kind of say, if you're going to Rockies, I kind of like some of those kids from the bottom of the lineup, in addition to like McMahon, maybe some Randall Grichuk. Diaz has been good if you want to catch her on DK. He's had a nice year. 4,600, 294, 350, 452 at the plate. So he's been an effective cheap catcher. but it's just fairly low end. Tovar, I don't love. He hasn't done much up top, and Profar I talked about. So it's a short lineup, and they're just running into Paxton, who's just pitching so well right now. 33% strikeouts, a 3.81 ERA, a 3.43 xFIP, and that's really only from one clunky start in the 5 starts that he's made. He had one bad outing, his 3 innings and change, I think it was against the Angels, give up 2 home runs, handful of runs. It's in the article. You can see he's given up some barrels and some hard hits here, but against his Rockies lineup, I'm not that concerned about it. You can get a little bit of power coming through in the home run model, 6s and 8s through here. So there is some idea of maybe they hit a home run or 2 against him, but he's probably going to coast to a solid handful of strikeouts here. They've got an aggressively bad strikeout rate, 28.5% against either hand, and I think it was pretty high against lefties when I looked earlier. So good spot for Paxton. I think at 9,300, 9,800, he's going to be super popular, but I think you go there anyway. It's, like I said, a shortish pitching slate, and I think some of these chalky options we're just going to have to eat the chalk on and kind of ride with. So no Seabold, no Paxton, no Seabold, no real interest in the Rockies, certainly interest in Paxton. And then the Red Sox lineup, Jarren Duran up top. Verdugo is the first time I'm looking into the confirmed here. It's not a bad 1 through 5. Duvall was my home run pick for the day. You can see they're drawing some power in there, including Tristan Casas in the 6th spot, drawing some power at an 11.48 in the home run model. We were looking earlier in the day. I was doing some averages of the stack totals in our premium Discord, and I'll show that in a second what I'm thinking about for the stacks board. But somebody asked, why are the Red Sox a little bit lower by comparison to I think it was the Angels. And it's because I showed it, this bottom end for the Red Sox, like Casas projects okay, but then these 3 guys are kind of flat. Arroyo, Connor Wong, and Enrique Hernandez. It was actually Reese McGuire in here in the projected lineup, so this actually is a little bit of an uptick. Reese McGuire would have been another black dot there. Connor Wong at least gets you to a red. I actually like Connor Wong for his contact profile. 6 home runs, 149 plate appearances, a 12.2% barrel rate, 43.3% hard hits. So a little bit of a boost to the back end, but it's not a great bottom third for the Red Sox overall, and you can lump Casas into there with his 201, 322, 374. 8% worse than average creating runs. He does have big time power and a good contact profile, 13.8% barrels, 45.5% hard hits for only 2,800. So I prefer to keep him with the good hitters and assume he's going to get there, but you could definitely lump him into the weak part and call him the weak part of the lineup too. So it's a flawed lineup up and down, but I think there's plenty of power here. They're going up against Connor Seabold, 16.7% strikeout rate, 5.10 ERA, 5.57 xFIP, plenty of power available, plenty of contact available. I think the Red Sox are going to be super popular, especially given their prices. None of these guys are all that expensive. So there's definite upside here, but there's also going to be a lot of people on these bats. So you're going to just have to figure out, where else am I going? What am I putting them together with that'll be a less popular combination? Maybe you leave a little salary on the table. Maybe you put them together with another stack that's not as popular, or a pitcher that's not as popular with two popular stacks. You can work it out. You guys know that I'm not overly concerned about popularity from like a duplication standpoint for baseball. We're concerned more about it from a leverage standpoint, getting ahead of the field somewhere. But I think we do that via our combinations, not by avoiding the chalk. So it's just a matter of what you put the chalk together with. Jump to the second game here. No lineups in this one yet. Let me see if we got either one of them. Nope, still nothing. Looks like we did get the Angels though, so I'll drop that in here real quick. Bear with me half a sec. We got plenty of time to talk. So Larry was in the chat saying he arrived a minute late. No, didn't miss anything really. Larry's just saying hi to the gang as got the show fired up there. So welcome. Good to see you back, buddy. Stephen B in the chat. Good to see you too. Hit the like, hit the subscribe if you haven't already, so that you know when these things get scheduled, when they go live, all that good stuff, and you can always get on here and join us. But yeah, Larry, you didn't miss anything early on. Trey, what's going on, buddy? Well, that's good. Hope you had a good weekend. Hope everybody out there had a good weekend. I did. Like I said, I was up at the Yankee game, had a blast with my buddy. Joker's freaking out over here. Hey, go lie down, pal. But yeah, had a blast with my buddy Brian up at the game, had some beers. We went for a burger before the game. So good Saturday. Sunday was kind of uneventful. Just hung around, covered the slate, obviously, writing about it yesterday. Low end results. I didn't really play on Saturday DFS wise, since it was that weird slate and I was going to the Yanks game. I threw in one lineup and cashed with it, but no, nothing crazy. And then yesterday I didn't get wiped out, but it was not a good day yesterday. I don't know what went haywire, because it felt like I was right about a lot of the stuff I was expecting. So I think I just got to some off-brand combinations are something that killed me with a few guys that pulled up zeros in where I expected production. But yeah, it was a weird results day for me yesterday. So hopefully better things today. Hopefully good luck to everybody out there, and hopefully it was better results over the weekend for you. Four Prong Dinger says, what's up? Best of luck. Yeah, good. Right back at you, buddy. What's up? Trey says, always a great day to be at a baseball game. Yeah, it was a good night at the stadium. It was nice, nice warm June evening, and a lot of fun watching the Yanks win. And it was a good game on Saturday too. So it was a lot of fun. Gausman and Peralta went haywire. Yeah, I was over on Peralta, under on Gausman, if I remember correctly. But it's amazing how, like, my goldfish memory, my very limited ability to remember things day to day, works really, really well for DFS, because I'm just like, move on to the next one, because I don't remember what yesterday's was all about. So we don't really have time to lament it, which is good. I do remember, but, like, a lot of the details get fuzzy over time, and there's no mystery as to why. Anyway, it's not aging. Let's see, where were we? All right, let's talk about the Giants and the Cards game here. I think it's a pretty good opportunity for the Giants. They are facing Matthew Liberatore. Liberatore is a better minor league pitcher so far. He was a 30% minor league strikeout rate so far this year. Worked in the mid-20s over the last couple of years in the minors. But so far in the show, 15.5% strikeouts, 11.3% walks in his 3 starts this year. 17.4% strikeouts, 11.2% walks in 34 2/3 and 7 starts last year. Hasn't really gotten there. He hasn't been like tragic for power. The premium contact isn't great with the 10% barrels, 44% hard hits, 90.6 miles an hour of exit velo, and similar higher hard hits last year. But it hasn't been tragic in terms of those mistakes haven't really cost him, because he's kept the ball down a little bit. 8.5 degree average launch angles kind of saved him from some uglier numbers. But he's already, even with that, he's sitting at a 6.0 ERA, a 5.39 xFIP. I think there's talent there over time, and I think if he finds his strikeouts, obviously there's going to be upside. The Giants are a decent matchup for him to be able to do that against, but you know how they go lefty-righty and they play the platoon game, and they've got a bunch of stout righties in the lineup here. There are strikeouts there, but until I see it, I don't know that I am going to really invest in it. 6,400, 6,500 for Liberatore. Better DK play as an SP2 on DK, and you can see he does, because of some innings and because of some strikeout potential, he does project decently here. I don't know what the dog's freaking out about. He does project decently here for me in my model. So it's not off the board, but I don't really buy this one. So this is one of those ones where I'm like kind of hesitant to recommend what my model is saying might be an okay value play. As a low expectation DK play, like if you have high risk tolerance, I think there is a decent enough play there. Certainly plenty of strikeouts in this lineup, but it's not great. We haven't seen him do it yet. So that's where the hesitance comes in a little bit. The other side of this one, I think, is a lot better of a spot. Logan Webb, even against the Cards, they should be a better lineup than they've been. We know they've got star power in that lineup. We know they've got some excellent bats in that lineup. And a lot of times we played them a ton for DFS purposes from 1 through 9. For me today, this isn't really a spot to play the Cards very much. You can see in the home run model, Logan Webb has them cut in half basically in the home run model. They haven't been all that productive at the plate, except, outside of the top couple guys and outside of kind of, stop and start performances from a lot of them. It's not really coming through in the projections. So I'm much more into the Logan Webb side of this one. 10-3, 10-6 from site to site. Perfectly affordable pricing for what he's been this year. 3.09 ERA, a 3.0 xFIP, only walks 5.1%, strikes out 25.4%. Nice little strikeout rate. He's given up a little bit more premium contact. The barrel's basically doubled from last year, 5.5% to 9.1, but the launch angle is still only 3.4 degrees on the average, 3.1 last year. So I expected this and this is more happenstance. Couple guys got the right angle on a ball and hit it really hard. So that's up a little bit. But I'm not really concerned. The home run rate went up from 1.4 last year to 2.9 in the small sample this year. This is probably going to normalize back toward these numbers because he's very, very good at limiting power, keeping the ball down, limiting launch angle. He's usually my example when I say, well, this guy's not quite Framber Valdez, but he's more like a Logan Webb type when I'm trying to talk about somebody who keeps the ball down. So I do like Webb. And I like the fact that he's striking hitters out this year. 25.4%, always good on the walks, never gets himself in trouble, good strike thrower. So at this price, I think you can go here. I think there's enough upside. 21.1% strikeouts for the Cardinals on the year in the projected lineup. So not filthy for strikeouts, but there's definitely enough upside there. Let's see what everybody's saying in the chat. Larry saying, yeah, you say you were under on Gaussman 2 in Discord. Yeah, I was definitely under. I only had a handful of them. It was because of how that price worked, just with on that slate, if I remember correctly, with a bunch of other options that I kind of liked. Okay, Reefer, yeah, that would be the one. Trey says, I've been in Joker's doghouse lately. Yeah, I mean, it's not treating him any different. I think he just gets lost in who I'm talking to, and he's wondering why Dad's just talking to himself up here. Not that I don't anyway. Do the Giants still pinch hit a ton? Not as much, Larry. Not as much at least not from what I've kind of casually observed. I haven't really looked into the numbers, but I don't think it's as bad because their lineup, for one, they've been missing a lot of parts through the year. So like a lot of like the Jock Petersons of the world have been out of the lineup. So there hasn't been as much opportunity to do it with. Now that they're more healthy, maybe they will a little bit, or maybe they are a little bit more. It's probably worth checking into. But something that is interesting platoon-wise with what they do in the lineup, and they'll probably do, you can see in the bottom of the lineup there with the Giants, and it's a good way into the lineup to talk about it here. Lamont Wade Jr., who is a terrific player, who's really underrated and a player I really like getting to for fantasy purposes, he struggles a lot against same-handed pitching. So he drops in the lineup. He's got a 101 WRC plus against same-handed pitching for the year, so just a tick above average, and has been worse over time in his career. But against righties, he excels, and I think his WRC plus was like 51% better than average or something, and has hit for terrific power. Is getting on base overall at a 413 clip. So against this lefty, at his 4,600, 3,000 price, even if he's hitting ninth, I think Lamont Wade is still on the board. And with the idea that we're probably getting into the Cardinals bullpen at some point, I think there's upside for getting to Lamont Wade at least from the bottom of the line. Maybe you skip over Schmidt and Pat Bailey, but you're playing this. You're probably playing Lamont Wade from down there. So I think there's upside for the Giants. They get mid-range home run projections, but we're only paying mid-range to low prices for any of these guys. So it kind of works. There's multi-position on several of these hitters, at least on the FanDuel slate. Casey Schmidt on the DK slate. But FanDuel, you get nice positional flexibility, cheap prices for guys like Thairo Estrada, Wilmer Flores, JD Davis, Mitch Haniger, Michael Conforto. There's a ton of power there. A lot of premium contact through this part of the lineup, the Davis, Mitch Haniger, and Michael Conforto part of the lineup. Double-digit barrel rates, 45% plus hard hit rates for all three of those guys. And they're free swingers in the 25% strikeout range, but at least they're not cracking that 30%. They all know how to get on base at a decent clip. Haniger's numbers are down overall because he missed a decent amount of time at the start of the year. You can see only 153 plate appearances, but a premium power hitter overall, and especially from the right side of the plate. That's somebody I think we want to get into. So I'm stacking some Giants. I won't go crazy. They're like a mid-range option for me, but I think they're in play. Cards, not as much. Maybe if you're taking out shares, you're going to obviously the Donovan, Goldschmidt, Gorman, Arenado part of the lineup. Maybe you click Tommy Edman into there as a sneaky little wraparound play if he's hitting ninth. But I don't love Wilson Contreras here. He's having a down year. 4,200. If you're playing on DK, you roster him over there because you need a catcher. If you're going to a 5-man card stack, it makes sense. He hits in the heart of the order. He's got a 10.6% barrel rate, 45% hard hits. That's only translated to 204, 294, 356 for the season. 7 homers is fine, but only a 153 ISO, 83 WRC plus. It hasn't been pretty for Contreras, who they already don't like as a catcher. So I don't love that spot, but like I said, if you're building 5-man Cardinals for whatever reason on DK to attack Logan Webb here, I think you can include him. But it's not my favorite, and I don't know how much I would need him on FanDuel, despite a good price. Carlson, Walker, DeYoung, mix and match parts, all talented guys, and it's a lineup that I've played probably too much from 1 through 9. I think most days the Cards lineup does play talent-wise from 1 through 9. It's just they've only produced, in drips and drabs. It's a weird season for St. Louis. Old Yankees cup. You probably can't even see the Yankees logo on it anymore. So we talk Giants, we talk Cards a little bit there, talk Logan Webb, talk Liberator. So I think you get a little bit of Liberator, maybe some dart throws for Liberator, but I do not expect much. So that is low end, only for the people who embrace a lot of risk. You can toss a couple of them, and even then you're only doing it a couple times. Logan Webb, enthusiastically play a bunch of them. Giants bats, I think you can throw as a mid-range stack at Liberator, and then the Cards are a fairly low end option. Angels and the Rangers. I think we're playing bats on both sides here. Does anybody have any particular love out there in the chat for either one of these pitchers and want to try and sell them in the chat? Because I don't really feel the need to try and sell them on the show. 68.71 for Tyler Anderson. Maybe the idea of clean innings. Like if you're playing Liberator shares, it's not the craziest idea in the world to suggest that Anderson could find some value or Dane Dunning could find some value. By the same token, they're both also limited mid-teen strikeout guys. Don't really walk anybody, at least not on Dunning's side. Anderson's at a 10.7% walk rate this year. It's just, I don't know, thin plays against good offenses where at least you get the idea of a thinner offense if you're going to the Liberator side. None of it's good. So don't get me wrong. I don't want to endorse any one of these pitchers. If I'm picking one from this game, it's probably Dunning going up against the Angels. I think there's a few more strikeouts there. A slightly less threatening lineup, which is a weird thing to say about a lineup that's got Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani in it. But I think he's got a little bit more potential here. Very, very thin. And that's coming through in the model, 22 point projection there compared to a 16 for Anderson. But it's super thin. Only 15% strikeouts for Dunning, 14.5 on the other side for Anderson. The 2.52 ERA for Dunning is nice, but the 4.61 xFIP I think we know is the honest number over time with this guy. He doesn't induce swinging strikes. He doesn't throw enough strikes. He gives up some premium contact. I think it's Angels bats all day. I think it's Rangers bats all day. So go to both sides in this one. The Rangers are pricey. This is a good time to bear with me 1 second. Stopping that. Starting this. Where is it? There we go. Let's take a look at this. This is what I'm debating, kind of putting up something like this as like that spot where I've got the top stacks tool on the site, or stack selections, I think I called it. I didn't want to use top stacks because that's what he uses. So if we're looking at this, Texas, you can see in here, and this is the projection is it just an average of the projections, and then rank it. The value is an average of that value column that I've got in there, and then we rank it. Same thing with DK value for their salaries, the home run, and then where does the opposing starting pitcher rank. So if we're looking at Texas, Tyler Anderson ranking 12th. If we're looking at LA, Dane Dunning ranking 10th. So we know those are low-end pitchers. I'm getting good value marks for LA based on the talent at price and the upside at price, because they've got down lineup guys like I was talking about before with like Brandon Drury and Hunter Renfroe and all their power upside compared to some of these other teams where the down lineup guys don't have quite as much or are priced much higher, which I think is the case with Texas, where we're just getting less value here because those guys are priced up because of how good that team has been this year. Tampa, it's not really the same thing. Tampa's prices aren't all that high for as productive as they've been. It's just kind of like name recognition, name brandedness of it. I for whatever reason, they're not priced nearly as high. So I think you're getting more value out of the Angels side, but I think there's equivalent run creation upside here. I think there's equivalent power. You can see this is the full lineup home run mark. So that both the Angels are getting pushed up a little bit by the Trout and Ohtani marks, and then they've got the Drurys, the Renfroes of the world in there to support it. And then the Rangers laying kind of squarely in the middle of the board for home run upside here. So you can see more power upside, but a little bit less points upside for a team like Philly. Boston, similar story. Significant home run upside there in the matchup against Seabold, but maybe overall they had that weak bottom third that I touched on. So you're getting some value based on the prices, but maybe a little bit less on the points. So I just wanted to show this and to illustrate the point about Texas there, but also to show you guys kind of what I'm thinking of. Something like that, help you make some of those decisions and find some value spots. Let me jump back to the old spreadsheet here. Nope, that one. All right, there we go. So if we're going to Angels, confirm lineup, Taylor Ward up top is perfectly fine. Seems like he's maybe coming on a little bit with the power. I think he's hit a handful of home runs over the last 10 days or so. Only a 92 WRC plus overall, 8 homers, 2 steals, 243-14. It's not as good as it was last year, but I think there's potential there given the price, and just that position in the lineup is just an enviable position for anybody in baseball who wants to pad their at least run scoring numbers, hitting ahead of Ohtani and Trout. Not to to mention Rendon. Ohtani and Trout, I don't need to sell to anybody. Although I should mention Mike Trout on FanDuel for 3,600. I don't care that he's kind of scuffled over the last month and change. He's down to 254, 351, 475 for anybody who does care. It's Mike Trout. It's $3,600. I think that's a kind of no-brainer. DK, you can see, hasn't made the mistake of pricing him down. Still 61 over there. That's where he should be. He's a $4,000 player at the minimum on FanDuel. It's Mike Trout. Anthony Rendon, ton of value there. Very good for correlated scoring right now. Getting on base at a 393 clip, creating runs 14% better than average. Still a small sample, 145 plate appearances because he missed time. But I think there is definite correlated scoring upside there. I think there's probably more power to come from Rendon too as he kind of settles in. And he's still very, very cheap. Can still drive the ball, hit you double, drive in a couple of runs, help with the, help float the scoring for the top of the lineup. Thais, good catcher value there. You can see 11% barrels, 41.5% hard hits. Decent little hard hitting catcher who jumped into this lineup when Ohapi got hurt. So I think Thais is playable, 27-25. Drury and Renfroe, I love the home run upside from both of those guys, 10 and 11 so far on the year. Good WRC plus marks. Renfroe's been in a slump through most of May and into June now. He's kind of been stuck at 11 home runs, but I believe in Hunter Renfroe's upside. I believe in Hunter Renfroe's power. So if the price is going to dip, I'm happy to take the discount on a player like that. 45.6% hard hit rate is up slightly from last year. The barrels are down a little bit. That's what's cost him a little bit of home run, a little bit of upside, but still terrific player for the prices and what will probably be reduced popularity. And then you get Jared Walsh and Zach Neto. Zach Neto had a multi-home run day yesterday. 5 home runs on the board, 5 steals in 190 plate appearances. Jared Walsh hasn't hit a home run yet in his 60 plate appearances, but we know he's got left-handed power at the bottom of the lineup. He's missed a bunch of time, but only 2,200, 2,300 at first base when they don't have a locked-in first baseman that you absolutely need. I think there's a ton of value there. That's a really cheap price to get a capable bat in a productive lineup in a good spot. I really like that opportunity. If you're going to Angel Stacks, I would make sure to include some Jared Walsh across a full portfolio there. Nice little value mark for Walsh. Ranger side of things, you can definitely go to these guys against Tyler Anderson. I don't think there's any arguing that. Healthy run total for them, up and down the lineup, just filled with talent, but a lot of fairly high prices, comparative to the other team at least across the board. It's very stark in those color illustrations there. You can see the much higher relative pricing, but they've earned it. They've been one of the best scoring teams in baseball all season long. Semien and Seager, dynamite duo in the middle infield. They are. I said dynamite duo, not dynamic duo. I don't owe the estate of Bob Kane any money. Dynamite duo in the middle infield. 5,859 is probably a little cheap. 4,142 is about right. 9 home runs for Semien. Just been locked in all season long as like kind of carrying their offense when everybody else has been, or when Seager was out and when some of the other guys were kind of bouncing along, he was locked in at the top of the lineup, and then everybody else caught up to him, and then Seager came back, and they just have been rolling. So love Semien up there, 191 ISO, 35% better than average creating runs. Has kind of been locked in at that 9 and 7 total for maybe a couple of weeks now. So maybe he needs to show a little bit in the counting stats side of things. But love Semien overall over his 300 plate appearances here. Seager is a superstar when he's healthy. 148 plate appearances this year, 7 homers, 258 ISO, 175 WRC plus. Yes, please. Nathaniel Lowe, excuse me. He doesn't like being called Nate, apparently. So you don't do it. Somebody tell the guys over at Stochastic. I've tried. They refuse to change that in the ownership. And I have to change it every time in my ownership here because I refuse to change it on my side because I'm a stubborn son of a... There's a reason Capt is heading for the Rangers. Oh, at one point, Lara, that's... there was some showdown data that I just dropped into here, and I used those spots since I wasn't using DK. I just, my stuff is typically on FanDuel. So I played a FanDuel slate, once upon a time that was a showdown slate, so I needed a captain ownership or projection or whatever it was spot. So just there's some old remnants of weird shit in here that always feel free to ask, and I will try to explain if I remember what they were. Jake Swall says pivoted to Garrett from Peralta and pivoted to McClanahan from Gaussman, ended up doubling up. Nice. Very nice. I loved that spot for Garrett yesterday. That was a good spot. Good decision on your part. Coco Montez wants to be draftable on DK till tomorrow night, 2,600. Yeah, it sucks they didn't work him in for today. That would have been a little value play going there. Jake Swells tried to sell to people in Stochastic yesterday, and 50% on the Peralta was a bad play. Got called stupid. Oops. Yeah, that's try not to do that here. I try, like I was saying the other day, I'm so much more into the idea of like an open exchange of ideas, some fun dialogue. Like, maybe we'll get into, if somebody wants to harp on BVP on me one day or something, we'll get into it a little bit. But I'm not one for calling people stupid, especially when it's such a high failure thing that we're all doing here. Like, the margin between my success and somebody who just, breaks even every day is, a couple of good days on a lot of these years. So let's not go nuts with the I'm better than anybody's or somebody stupid for thinking one way or not. It's not on that kind of a thing. Anyway, let's talk this one through. Let's keep on going here. So we were talking Semyon Seager, obviously awesome. Nathaniel Lowe, I really like him because he helps offset price in this lineup. This super expensive lineup, for whatever reason, 4,500, 3,300 for a guy, 119 WRC plus. His homers are down a little bit. His triple slash is down a little bit, but he's still been very good at creating runs. Correlates really well with these other guys at first base and is in the heart of their lineup, hitting third every single day. So I really don't mind paying those prices for him. I think he helps offset the upside of the other guys in terms of price. Adolis Garcia, 5,500, 3,800, 15 home runs, 5 stolen bases, running a little bit less this year, but I don't really care with the uptick in his barrel rate, his hard hit rate. His barrels jumped from 12.9 to 14.8. Hard hits up from 47.4 to 52.3. Just a dynamite player. Josh Young, I've mentioned it a couple times already. It was just this is one guy I was wrong about. I didn't expect the massive turnaround. He shaved 12 points off his strikeout rate year over year. It was fairly small sample last year, but that was always his thing. His kid strikes out too much. Is he going to be able to maintain it at the major league level? And he has just put it all together this year. 13 homers, 223 ISO, 132 WRC plus in 261 plate appearances, slashing 285, 333, 508. The kid's been killing it. So you gotta love what Josh Young's doing at the plate. Jonah Heim and Mitch Garver both in the lineup give you multiple catcher options at different price points for basically the same kind of power hitting catcher. Heim 7 home runs in 220 plate appearances. Garver right on his heels with 3 home runs in 44 plate appearances. So tons of upside there in terms of catcher. I think you can play either one of those guys on FanDuel. It would be a weird lineup, but maybe not the craziest decision if you wanted to play both of those guys. And then like Adolis Garcia and Josh Young for the straight line stack, or both of those guys with like Seager and Semyon or Seager and Adolis, something like that. Just to differentiate by putting both of them in there instead of a Nathaniel Lowe. As much as I like Nathaniel Lowe, I think he gains more popularity, and then him and one of those guys would be more popular than those two guys together. So I think just thinking through combinations wise, it's interesting to maybe explore options like that. Ezekiel Duran, it's been really, really good this year. He came into his own. He was a hitter who in the minors was producing, and then every time he got a little shot in the majors, they couldn't really find a full-time job for him. Every time he got a shot in the majors, didn't really click. But now this season, 167 plate appearances, was filling in regularly for Seager earlier in the year, and now has basically earned this full-time job. 310, 359, 510, a 200 ISO over 167 plate appearances. 3 positions on FanDuel: second base, shortstop, and outfield, which is great. You can move them all around the board for 2,900. That's a killer option to have at the bottom of this lineup. 3,200 shortstop, outfield on DK. Similar kind of flexibility, a little bit better on FanDuel, but gotta love Ezekiel Duran down there. And then Leody Taveras has been really productive this year too. Another guy who he was a somewhat highly regarded like hit tool and speed, good defense type of a guy coming up. Never really fully clicked, but this year 293, 354, 460 overall, 27% better than average for runs, 5 homers, 5 steals. Not bad for Leody Taveras, especially for the price. 3,200, 3,000 in the outfield. That is nicely affordable. Mamba shipped another 20K on Friday. Nice, dude. 99% pit lineups. That's right. That's right. We were in there. I think it was Dennis. I don't know if Dennis is in the chat right now, but later that night when Pittsburgh was going off in in my Discord, Dennis, XX Cubs fan, who had been joking with you in the during the show that day, said, "Oh boy, I hope Mamba stacked those Pirates." So nicely done, dude. That's awesome. Let's move on from here. So we talked Angels. So really no pitching in this one. This one's all bats. I think you can go up and down with either one of these teams and be pretty happy about it. You got power. You've got more value on the Angels side like we saw. But you definitely want to figure out a way to get Texas bats into your life tonight, I think. Cincinnati, Kansas City. Another low-end pitching matchup. But you can see kind of semi, maybe sort of interesting pitching projections. 25-6 for Zach Greinke, which makes me really uncomfortable. 29 and change for Luke Weaver makes me even more uncomfortable. But there's just all these filthy strikeouts in this lineup for Kansas City, which is what's pushing that projection. I checked. I wanted to make sure it wasn't like a broken innings projection or something, and it's really not. It's just coming through in some of the strikeouts. And I've talked about it before. I think Weaver's a little bit better than his reputation, and is a little bit better than the power hitting that he gives up, which is his one ongoing problem. You can see it's just lousy for power here. 45% hard hit rate, an 11% barrel rate, 5.83% home runs. That's your problem. 6.27 on the ERA just crushes you, but a 4.23 xFIP, 22.3% strikeouts, 5.3% walk rate. These are good numbers, or at least league average-ish, serviceable numbers. And it was the same. Last year was a small sample, bit larger sample the year before, similar thing. Lousy for power, but 4.25 ERA, 4.26 xFIP, 22.5% strikeouts, a few more walks. But like these are league average-ish kind of numbers. If he finds league average form tonight against this Royals team and manages to not give up a home run, I think there's upside at the $7,500 price on DK as an SP2. I'll probably end up with a few shares at 81 on FanDuel and be really unhappy about it when I see that those lineups are complete toast with a -12 performance from him by the third inning. That's probably what we're dealing with, right? Don't get me wrong. I don't want to sell this one too hard either. It hasn't been good for Luke Weaver, and it hasn't been good over a fairly sustained amount of time. But there is just a ton of strikeout upside in this Royals lineup. So maybe we go that route. Maybe we roster a little bit of crazy Zach Greinke against the Reds. The Reds have not been good overall this season. There are a lot of very young hitters in that lineup. So if you think about a guy who's just getting by on guile at this point, and his strikeouts are actually up. I will say that about Zach Greinke. His strikeouts are up year over year. 12.5 last year, up to 18.3 this year. The xFIP, the ERAs have been relatively okay. Good ERA last year with a clunkier xFIP. This year it's kind of reversed. A good xFIP with a clunkier ERA. He's not good. His stuff is broken. I think the way I put it in the article today was his stuff retired in 2019, and he's still just been hanging on and pitching. But he does have those games where he gets by. And if I'm targeting a team that's kind of a low-end team anyway, a lot of kids in the lineup now. If you think about a pitcher who's getting by on like just fooling people or whatever, I don't know. It's maybe a little bit of support, at least narrative-wise, for the number that I'm seeing there. For price, you can just go by the number. I think for $7,000, $7,300, it's worth probably a couple of darts of Zach Greinke here. It's not great. This is the first time I've endorsed him in a very long time. But I do think in this spot, maybe a little bit of value. Reds on kind of a heater since the LA call up also. Yeah, that's the thing. You get him in here now. Spencer Steer's having a nice year. Jonathan India's a good player. Matt McClain has been great since his call up 119 plate appearances ago. TJ Friedel's having a nice year. So it's not a terrible top end. Falls off around Tyler Stevenson in the 6th spot. Maybe you get some odd duck power out of him. Bottom third, not overly great. So it's a kind of weak bottom third. I think Zach Greinke won't have too much problem getting through it 2-3 times. It's just a matter of what the premium rookies do against him, really. But if you're looking at Ellie, if we're poking holes in Ellie and Matt McClain, 27% strikeouts for Matt McClain, 37% for Ellie so far. Ellie's made 27 plate appearances. We're not going to go nuts. 27 plate appearances. He struck out 10 times. He walked 5 times. He's got a 364, 481, 636. He's scored 7 runs, hit a home run, stolen 3 bases. He's hit every single mark for what we thought he was going to do. He struck out a little more than you'd want him to, but he's hit for average, he's hit for power, he's stolen bases. The kid is just a blast to watch. If you haven't watched him yet, watch him take a plate appearance or 2 against Zach Greinke tonight, because he could certainly make something happen against the soft tosser like this too. So it'll be really interesting to watch those, specifically that matchup. I will have some Reds here. You can see they're projecting fairly well for me. And it's those guys that I talked about. It's that 1 through 5. I think that's interesting. Matt McClain, 336, 387, 518 with a 182 ISO, a 140 WRC plus. He was raking in the minors before they called him up. If they end up with Encarnacion Strand on this team in a week or two, they're going to get even better. But they've got some roadblocks with like Spencer Steer needs a position. Joey Votto is still lingering out there. He's on the injured list, but he'll come back at some point. So it's a bit of a logjam with what they want to do with some of these kids. But right now, you're going to Ellie De La Cruz, you're going to Matt McClain as your 2 star
ish, quote unquote stars on this team right now, with very, very limited experience. And then you bolt on a Spencer Steer, who's having a very nice year. You bolt on an India, who is a good player for counting stats, 7 home runs, 12 steals on a 109 WRC plus. So there are definitely ways to go with the Reds. And then bottom of the lineup wise, at least you're not paying high prices on either site for a guy like Stuart Fairchild. I thought we would get a little bit out of Fairchild maybe this year. It hasn't amounted to much. 171 plate appearances, 2 homers, 7 steals, and 85 WRC plus, a 138 ISO. Last year, he hit a handful of home runs. It was a limited sample, 9.5% barrel rate and 41.3% hard hits, though. I thought we were maybe getting something like this, and it cratered down to 7.1% barrels, 28.6% hard hits. So hasn't been much there for Fairchild. So we'll see what happens. But I think, if you're mixing and matching, if you're building 30 red stacks, 25 red stacks, something like that, you can throw Fairchild into a couple of them. He's probably my favorite bat out of those guys at the bottom. Luke Maile, if you need a catcher on DK, fine. If you want to go away from Stevenson for a share or two, that's fine. But the position in the batting order would justify Stevenson a lot more than Maile. On the Royal side of things, it's that top 4, top 5. I mentioned it in the article. If you look in the barrel and the hard hit column for the top 5 here, that is a significant amount of barrels and hard hits among these guys. They are all flawed in terms of strikeouts, though. So you're getting an average 11.3% barrel rate. You're getting an average 46.7% hard hit rate. And you're getting an average 27.7% strikeout rate on the year. That is ugly for strikeouts. Nick Pratto has a 375 on base percentage, a 10.4% walk rate, a 36.3% strikeout rate. So basically 75% of the time he's either striking out or getting on first base. It's kind of insane. But he's been, somewhat effective. 4 home runs, 151 ISO, 127 WRC plus. I like Pratto. Lefty hitter, first base and outfield eligibility on both sites. Only 3,100, 2,900. So if we're attacking Luke Weaver, which I definitely think we can do, given that it's Luke Weaver, given all the power that he gives up, I'm going to start with Nick Pratto and work my way through that top 5. Sal Perez, MJ Melendez. For all Melendez's faults, high strikeout rate, 30.4%. He hits the ball very hard regularly. 11.7% barrels, 53.1% hard hits. Only 5 home runs, a 142 ISO. I'll keep harping on this all year until those numbers start to align. Either that contact is going down or those home runs and the ISO are going up. It can't stay this way all year. He can't just hit the ball directly at people all year, I don't think. Bobby Witt, 57-33 for a premium shortstop in terms of the counting stats. I think that's fine. Overall, 239, 271, 417. He hasn't been what we want yet. 83 WRC plus, but I'll take it for 10 home runs and 20 stolen bases in 277 plate appearances. The counting stats are giving me enough there, and I believe in the talent. 12.6% barrels is good. 43.2% hard hits is fine. Out of the guys who strike out like crazy at the top, he's the least, 21.3%. That's fine. Doesn't walk enough, 4% walk rate. He needs to start walking and getting on base more. Then he can steal more bases, get involved a little bit more. The WRC plus goes up. You know how these things work. Weak back end, Mike Massey's fine. He hits the ball fairly hard too. 2,300, 2,500 at second base. That's usable. Only 217, 271, 309. He kind of just fits into the theme here. You don't get enough reliability out of him, but he could definitely turn on a Luke Weaver pitch and drive it over the wall. So there's enough hard hit from the left side from Massey. I'm playing 1 through 5, and then you can mix and match some shares of Edward Olivares, Michael Garcia, Drew Waters. On DK, you get Darian Blanco, about whom I know very little. Min Price. We can take a half a second and look him up. I noticed that he was in the lineup right before I jumped on the show, and I didn't have a chance to pull him. Not familiar with him as a prospect because he's 30 years old. That would do it. 30-year-old non-prospect has been in the Kansas City system all along. Started in Oakland 3 and change years ago, 4 and change years ago. So even got a late start as a prospect. His first numbers come in high A at age 25. That's just weird. Never anything really to speak of. Handful, some good stolen base seasons. AAA last year, 414 plate appearances, 45 stolen bases, 14 home runs. So the speed is significant, I guess, with this guy. If you're building 150 Kansas City lineups and you want to put him in 5 to 10, that's fine on DK for the dead minimum. Maybe use him even a little bit more and hope he gets on base and steals you a bag or two. But it's not great. I don't think he's much of a major leaguer at 30. I think we probably would have seen him by now. So I guess we did see him. We saw him for 7 plate appearances last year. 7 plate appearances last year. Scored a run, 2 RBIs, 1 stolen base. Is what he is. Also struck out 57.1% of the time. All right, let's keep on rolling here. So for me, it's a few shares probably of value pitchers in this one. I do think there's support for the projections here with the strikeout rates of both of these teams, with the flawed nature of both of these teams. It's not great. It's not comfy on either side, but I wouldn't be totally stunned to see one of these guys deliver you a good value score. More so on the DK slate as an SP2. That's where they're a little bit more comfy. On FanDuel, it gets really ugly with using these guys. And then certainly the bats on both sides. Focus on the top end of the lineups. We talked about the Reds. So yeah, 1 through 5 for the Reds, mix and match there. 1 through 5 for the Royals, mix and match there. 3 games to go, short slate. Marlins and the Mariners. This one we're drawing pitching from. Let me see if we got any lineups. Didn't get either lineup. Right? Where are they? Yeah, they're there. These are out of order on, or I'm sure they're in order on Labs time wise, and I have it by FanDuel's order. So Marlins. Jesus Luzardo on the hill. I don't understand why he's as cheap as he is. 9,600, 9,500. It's not like he's missed time. 13 starts, 73 and 2/3 innings. He's been excellent this year. He's going up against one of the highest strikeout lineups in baseball in a pitcher's park. I don't really get why he's 9,600, 9,500. I think this is a major discount on both sides. Should probably be about 1,000 more expensive. Given 28.2% strikeouts this year, has cut his walk rate from 8 and change, 8.8 last year to 6.6 this year in a growing sample. 3.79 ERA to a 3.64 xFIP, so he's been exactly who he looks like on the surface. 13.4% swinging, 30% CSW is right in line with what he did over time last year. Has limited home runs despite an aggressively high barrel rate, some launch angles, some hard hits, and exit velo. Has been fairly effective limiting home runs. I suspect it's because he's missing bats so effectively. So maybe he gets dinged here because of a little bit of power. If he makes a mistake, maybe it travels a little bit. But overall, Jesus Luzardo is an excellent pitcher to find against this Mariners team in this park for those prices. So you can see the value numbers here on both of these pitchers are actually exactly identical for the price differential there and the way they project. So I want to get a bunch of Jesus Luzardo here. I'll take some hedge stacks of Mariners, just a few. They're striking out way too much, but there is definitely power there. There's some righty power there. So I'll grab a few hedge stacks of like a Julio Rodriguez, Ty France, Teoscar Hernandez, maybe some Kelnick, maybe some Eugenio Suarez, but it's not great up and down. AJ Pollock maybe for a cheap price at the bottom of the lineup if you're struggling. $2,300 outfielder, $2,400 on FanDuel. Veteran guy, only 109 plate appearances this year, 4 home runs, but kind of a guy the idea of some reliability from the right side of the plate for a super cheap price. Maybe you get to some AJ Pollock. But up and down, it's not really great for this Mariners team. They've kind of underperformed on the season. You can see a lot of very low batting averages, very low on base percentages. The WRC plus marks are okay for the top end of the lineup, but they're not where you want them to be. Julio, for all his talent, 12 home runs, 12 stolen bases. The counting stats are good. That's about on pace with what his pace was from last year. He hit 28 home runs, stole 25 bases, and 560 plate appearances. So you figure about half the plate appearances, about half the performance there. So that's okay. But the triple slash down to 245, 305, 440 after going 284, 345, 509 last year as a rookie. The ISO's down at 195 from 225. And the WRC plus is down hard from 146 to 111. So some problems here for the Mariners. They haven't performed up to expectations, and there's just massive strikeout potential for Jesus Luzardo. So I like Luzardo better than I like the Mariners by a pretty wide margin. I will take a few hedge stacks of Mariners. Same token, I want to get to some Bryce Miller here. I don't really understand why he's more expensive on the DK slate than Jesus Luzardo is. I guess it's a matchup against the Marlins. Maybe that justifies it. His first 5 games out of his 7 starts were outstanding. And then he ran into the Yankees and the Rangers, which kind of sucked for him. 2 of the highest scoring teams in the game. Certainly not the easiest matchups and gave up a bunch of runs in those. But overall, Miller's an outstanding pitcher. He slots right in with their team concept in Seattle of good, not great, not crazy. We don't care crazy much about your strikeout rate being super high. We want you to have good control and command. And this is what you can see in Kirby and Logan Gilbert as well. Very low walk rates. So far, small sample, Bryce Miller, but this was his reputation coming up. Excellent control and command. So 38 and a third, only a 3.3% walk rate, 21.7% strikeouts. A couple of games in Oakland against Oakland in there bolstered some of his strikeouts. So the actual might be a little lower. But I think this is probably settled into about what it's going to be, 22, 24 maybe over time. But kid's a good pitcher on control and command. Has given up a little bit of pop, but some of this is from those two lousy starts. Small sample. I think we can get to Bryce Miller here. They bumped him back. He was supposed to face the Angels yesterday. And they said, let's give the kid a break. Give him the easier matchup going up against the Marlins tomorrow. So I like the spot here. I like the price on FanDuel. Only $9,000 on FanDuel. Nice little value metric on the FanDuel slate. Not quite as much on the DK slate at $10,000, but I think you can shove chips on him on DK as well. And I think there's plenty of hitting value, plenty of SP2 value where you can support that price on DK and not really have to worry about it. Maybe it drives his ownership down over there a little bit, and maybe you get him at a popularity discount. Do I want to roster the Marlins? Luis Arias isn't hitting 400 anymore, so I guess not. 397. What a waste of time. 158 WRC plus. Anybody who tells you Luis Arias is not good is wrong. Kid's killing it this year. 7.1 per, or excuse me, no. That was 7.1 was last year's just bloated, ugly number for strikeouts. This year it's 5.1% strikeouts. That's bananas. To be a major league hitter who only strikes out 5.1% of the time is just completely bonkers. Yeah, he doesn't hit for power. He's got one home run on the season, a 1.8% barrel rate, 22.5%. He is the definition of a slap hitter, but he puts the ball in play like crazy with that strikeout rate, and he's hitting 397, 447 on base, 485 slugging, 158 WRC plus. He's a fantastic player. 4,900 is a discount. 2,900 is a big discount. Take him at second base. You book him with Jorge Soler, maybe some Brian De La Cruz and some Jesus Sanchez. Get some power there. It's a four-man there off the top. Garrett Cooper's probably my fifth man in. Maybe Nick Fortes if I'm playing on DK. I don't love this lineup from 5 down, though. It really dies on the vine there. Cooper's got some decent contact profile here. 10.6% barrels, 48.7% hard hits, 7 home runs, a 173 ISO, 85 WRC plus. It's really about the top 4 here for me. I think you get decent prices on those guys, especially on FanDuel. Everybody up here is cheap. So you can probably go to some Marlins here with the idea that it is a rookie pitcher, figuring things out. Not a flamethrower on the mound either. Works in like the mid-90s. Very, very good stuff, but works in like the mid-90s. So not going to blow anybody away necessarily. You get that eyes on base twice, 3 times ahead of Soler, maybe a home run, maybe some upside for power from De La Cruz and Sanchez. So that's really where I'm focused there. I wouldn't get out of hand with Marlin stacks here, though. I believe in Bryce Miller. I believe in the talent on the other side, and I think he keeps this team in check. And last I saw, Vegas was agreeing with that. Yeah, 3.72 implied total for the Marlins. Only a 3.87 on the Mariners side. So Vegas is seeing this one as a pitching spot too. 7.5 run total, by far the lowest on the board. Might have changed by a half run since I looked at it earlier, but nothing too concerning there. So this one for me, pitching on both sides for sure, and then maybe some hedge stacks of both teams. Mix and match them. It's a small slate, only 14 teams to choose from. There is talent on both sides here. More talent in the Mariners lineup. Top end of this one is good. Talk about a talented lineup. The Tampa Bay Rays facing the Oakland Athletics. So really, it's the tale of 2 completely different lineups. Talented lineup on the Rays side of things, not so much on the Athletics side. Let's see if we got either of these lineups confirmed. Does not look like we did. So I think we're all probably pretty enthusiastic about throwing some Rays bats at James Kaprielian here. I can't imagine anybody really wants to roster Kaprielian. He's been a little bit better in terms of his strikeouts this year, up from 17% last year to 18.6%. 2 years ago, it was much better at 24.5%. He still wasn't a very good pitcher. 4.07 ERA, a 4.56 xFIP, walked too many, gave up some premium contact. So he wasn't very good, and now he's not striking anybody out for the last year and a half. So don't really have any need for Kaprielian. Giving up a lot of, giving up mid-range home run marks, mid-range contact. Hasn't been filthy for the contact this year. I'll give him that. But a 7.21 ERA, a 6.19 xFIP over 43 2/3, 8 starts. I don't think we need to go to him against probably the best offense in baseball. So it's all about the Rays here for me. And by the same token, it kind of lines up that way for the pitcher as well. He's my highest projected pitcher on the day. I assume he's the highest projected around the industry in the matchup against the A's. Mr. Zach Eflin, Come on down. Highest price guy on both sites on the mound. 11,000 on DK, 10.8 on the FanDuel slate. Totally justified. He's pitching really well this year. 25.7% strikeout rate, 3.5% walk rate, a 307 xFIP, a .96 whip, inducing a nice swinging strike rate. 30.4 in the CSW is very good. A little bit of premium contact against in terms of the barrels are a little higher than you would expect for a 6.9 degree average launch angle. Hard hits is fine at 38.1. That's average-ish. 87.2 average exit velo is fairly low, so that's good. 3.11% home run rate, maybe a little bit of happenstance in there, but overall just excellent on the season and facing a lineup that we just do not think very much of, at least on my end of this exchange. If you guys disagree, let me know. I know some people have won some tournaments and they've been frisky from time to time here, but yeah, not really my team to go to here, not for value. They were showing an okay value number in I think it was the FanDuel side, but it might have been the DK side. But overall, they're low priced, but it's a lousy lineup. Let me see. There was a question that just caught my eye. What's up, EB? What's going on? Do you give pause to teams on the first night going from East Coast to West, i.e. Tampa Bay? Not really. For me, it's Tampa Bay's traveling to a pitcher's park. Not that their park is all that hitter friendly and facing a good pitcher. So if you get too focused on the first night after a long trip, you lose sight in the numbers of it, of what was the matchup, what were the conditions. Is there something there? Potentially. But I think these days, especially, these guys are so used to doing it. The flights are so comfy. The hotels are comfy and easy. They've got everything handled for them. It's not like these guys are, at 4:00 in the morning, swinging their own bags over their shoulders and trudging through the snow to get to a shitty motel somewhere, and riding a bus for 2 hours the next morning to get to the stadium or anything like that. So is there something there? Maybe. I think it's a more impactful thing probably for like football. Than it is for baseball. But it is something that it could be there, but it's one of those things that I kind of just chalk up to like, I don't know how to quantify that, and I don't know how to filter the signal from the noise, even if I tried to quantify it. So it's something that gets lost in there. Maybe you file it away in the back of your mind as like a tiebreaker, which is usually the only way I like to think about stuff like that, is like if there's a good narrative that does click for me, that makes some sense, I'll not let it override numbers. But if I come down to it for the last spot in the lineup and I'm deciding between a guy in this situation and that situation, maybe that's where I use something like that. All right, this guy didn't travel to the West Coast. Let's throw the other guy in. That's the only kind of a way I can think of it. Because like I said, even if you tried, you couldn't filter the signal from the noise. It's just not enough there. Bird Nerd, what's up? Says T-Mac, nice to see you doing your own thing. Appreciate that, buddy. Make sure that you hit the subscribe there, Bird Nerd. And, you're getting all the notifications. If this is your first time here, anybody, hit the subscribe. Hit the like button. Helps me out. Hits the subscribe. Lets you know when we go live for this. Looks like we got 49 people in here. Appreciate that, gang. Welcome. Thank you for hanging out with me. I don't know why I ripped off John Oliver there, but I did. Let's take a look at these last couple of situations here. So Zach Eflin, killer spot. I think we load up on Eflin shares. I assume he'll be the most popular pitcher of the day despite the prices, and I really don't care. Like I said, I think we kind of embrace the chalk on this slate. Hopefully one of either Luzardo or Miller goes a little bit underowned by the field just by virtue of where they're going. One of those guys falls by the wayside a little bit. I suspect it would be Miller, but we'll see. So we'll see what we get there. Athletics for me, not that much. As a value play, if you want to mix and match a few of the better hitters in that lineup, fine. You get stolen base upside for sure from Esteury Ruiz, 323 on base. Would be nice if he would improve his on-base percentage and push the stolen base total even higher, but obviously 31 stolen bases and 288 plate appearances, I believe, leading the league. I haven't seen anybody with a higher number, and just a dynamite stolen base option for fairly cheap prices. So if he gets on, you're probably scoring bonus points. He needs to get on. Paxton's going to be the most owned? Okay. That makes sense. Against that Rockies team that is just totally inept against left-handed pitching like we talked about at the top of the show. That makes total sense. Would not surprise me at all. And based on where he was priced and everything, that makes total sense. So if Eflin gets a little bit of a discount for ownership, so much the better. That gives me even more enthusiasm about the Eflin play. But I do like Paxton. I will definitely get some Paxton, and that's a killer spot. I mentioned in the in the Discord, if you saw in the Discord, I had to go in with Paxton just because of how well he's been pitching. It wasn't really accounted for in the backbone projections. So I went in, I updated his backbone projections, and I fixed where he was in both my innings projection and my overall projection for him. So he looks a little bit better than if you saw it early in the day. Luzardo should be, in my opinion, so I hope that's the case. Yeah, that would be a fantastic result if Luzardo came in on their own as well. So if we're going to A's, you can bolt in some Estuary Ruiz. You hope he gets on base and hope he steals you 2-3 bases on the night. Ryan Noda has been excellent this season. 15.1% barrels, 47.2% hard hits in 227 plate appearances. He's turned that into 7 home runs, a 410 on base percentage, a 203 ISO, creating runs 51% better than average. For a guy who also strikes out 31% of the time, that is just a ridiculously productive triple slash. It's a ridiculously productive on base percentage. A 410 on base for with a 31.7% strikeout rate. You don't see all that often. That's because he's walking 19.8% of the time, but just a hyper productive guy in the top part of that lineup. Seth Brown is a better overall hitter probably. Last year, 25 home runs, 11 stolen bases, 102 plate appearances this year. Got hurt early in the season. Is just kind of finding his form again. 4 home runs early, 2 stolen bases, but missed too much time. I think he's still finding his way. But 2,800, 2,500, first base and outfield on the FanDuel slate is a pretty good little option there if you choose to attack Zach Eflin. I wouldn't like one-off it unless you needed an extreme value. It's not a great spot just because of how good Eflin has been. Ramon Laureano, Jace Peterson, Jonah Bride, JJ Bleday, Shea Langoliers, Kevin Smith. Stop me if you hear a good player in here. I guess maybe Langoliers is my favorite guy in that group. 8 home runs on the season, sneaky-ish catcher option. Nice little 9.8% barrel rate. But yeah, it's not a great back end there for the Athletics. Stephen Leibowitz, 39% at 7 p.m., 54 at 8, 49 at 9. Weather I saw said these are pretty scattered. Keeping an eye on for a delay, a little concern with Paxton. I checked the Roth's weather report before the show started, and he didn't seem all that concerned. Said it might be a couple showers, but probably not a delay. So kudos to Kevin Roth there. But I don't think I'm that concerned about the weather, Stephen. But I will definitely keep an eye on it. I always at least swing back, at like 6:45 and say, oh shit, the weather. And I make sure to swing back and check that I'm not rostering a game that's been rained out or something. That can and has happened. So Tampa side of things, we don't want to skip over that. Tampa side of things, assuming we get this lineup or basically any version of whatever they roll out there, you're probably just going to it up and down. There's affordable pricing. We saw they were pulling in a good value range for such a highly projected team. They have been absolutely on fire all season long. Their performance has been inarguable at this point. There are so many guys in this lineup that are playing above their heads that I start to wonder if they've figured out a way to like hack the little pitch calling devices that the catcher to the pitcher have, and they're listening in on that and relaying it somehow. Like something, I don't want to say something's going on. I like believing that these guys have just been this good at baseball this year, but it's just been inordinate performances. They've been so good this year. Look at all the home runs in that lineup. 12 home runs, 8, 11, 12, 11, 11, 7, 11. Limited plate appearances. Like Jose Siri's got 11 home runs in 143 plate appearances. Luke Raley's got 11 in 165. A 326 ISO for Raley, a 308 ISO for Jose Siri. At some point, it's got to come back to reality a little bit. But right now, I think we just go to it, up and down. There are dynamite options for mixing and matching positions with all the multi-position eligibility at fair prices. First base and outfield for Raley at 3,500 for a guy who's got a 21.3% barrel rate, 56.4% hard hits, and 11 home runs in 165 plate appearances. He's first base and outfield for 31 on FanDuel. You get Taylor Walls, who's playing way above his head with 7 home runs and 15 stolen bases. At least he's come back down to earth with the 211, 321, 410. Still 10% better than average creating runs, 3 position eligible, cheap prices. Just a good lineup from top to bottom. The actual good players at the top of the lineup, Johnny Diaz. Nobody told him that he was supposed to come back to earth at some point. He's been spectacular all year. A 171 WRC plus. He gets hurt, he comes back, he's fine. He keeps on rolling. It's love Yandy up at the top. Wander Franco is a premium shortstop that I'm happy to pay for. 5,600, 3,900. It's the right price. 8 home runs, 22 stolen bases, 39% better than average creating runs. Josh Lowe, Randy Rosarena, Isaac Paredes has had a really nice year for 3,600, 3,200 with multi-position on FanDuel. 11 home runs for him and only 221 plate appearances. 11 seems to be the theme with this team. So just, yeah, up and down, whatever combinations you want to put them in, whatever combinations they put into the lineup, whatever combinations you can get to in combination with other things. I think you're just doing it all day long here, going up against James Caprillion. Could be a killer spot. Not the greatest ballpark in the world for offensive upside if we want to find a nit to pick, but I don't really care with how much they've been just creating runs. Even when they don't hit home runs, they find ways to score a bunch of runs. If they get into the bullpen, they've got one of the worst bullpens in the league to deal with here. So, I mean, there's just so much upside. Upside for days. Imagine if Tampa Bay players stay on pace all year. 6 guys with 40-plus home runs. Yeah, seriously. That is no joke, Fanatic. They have been just absolutely killing it. It's unreal. Cap and Webb giving up the most stolen bases. Who's a threat? That's an interesting one. On the Rays, basically anybody will run, but you can see you've got Wander Franco, obviously 22 stolen bases. Russell Arena hasn't run quite as much this year, but started to run a little bit more recently. He's up to 9 stolen bases on the year. Josh Lowe runs a lot. Taylor Walls certainly runs a decent amount. Jose Siri runs. So, yeah, there's plenty of stolen bases against Caprillion here as well. And then Estuary Ruiz on the opposite side of that one. And then, what are we saying? Logan Webb from the Giants game? This isn't the Giants game. Who the hell are the Giants playing? Remind me. There they are. Less stolen base upside. You can see a bunch of guys have them, but nobody in the double digits. Less threatening, I think, overall. But probably if you get cards on base, if Webb's that bad, it's not something I track. The stolen base. It's something I could probably work in here. I got a spot for it. Maybe I built in these little slots. And have slowly filled slots over the years with stats I want to follow. Maybe I'll throw some stolen bases against pitcher in there for future use. We can talk about it a little bit better. But, yeah, handful of stolen bases for a lot of these guys on the cards. So, like, Donovan will probably run if he gets on. Tommy Edman certainly runs when he gets on base. Those would be the prime guys that leap to mind for the Cardinals side of things. But, like, even a Goldschmidt, if he gets on, could steal you a base. He's got 7 on the year. So there is a little bit of stolen base upside. I would consider that just kind of a bonus if you get it. I wouldn't necessarily go out of my way to look for it on the Cardinal side of things, but maybe it is just yet another reason to get to even more Rays here, because that would definitely be in play. So tons of enthusiasm about both the Rays bats and the Rays pitcher here. No real enthusiasm about the Athletics or the Athletics pitcher. If you need to put something gold and yellow into your lineups here, I guess, or green and gold, I guess you go to Athletics bats, that like top 4, top 5 maybe, but it's not great. Don't go to the Athletics pitcher. Last game on deck. Let's see what's in the chat. 2020 they had a season 2. It's like they're more prepared at the beginning of the season than by the end, and the people catch up, figure them out. Yeah, that's they're a really well-constructed ball club, the Rays. So that's what I was talking about at the beginning of the season when it was just like they're just starting this crazy run they've been on. Was just, I love the way that the lineup comes together with so many different moving parts, guys that play multiple positions, guys that can produce, guys who have always been good line drive hitters, good run creators, even before this outrageous year where they're hitting for all this power. I just really liked the way that lineup was constructed, and then the way it's come together has been obviously defied all expectations. But yeah, that's it's been something that the Rays have they've had in spurts over time because of their team philosophies and the way they build this team, and then this has just been the greatest example by far results wise of it. We'll see if it holds up for the year. Kind of curious to watch it, and I think they've got a great ball club. If they maintain health in the pitching staff, they've got a good shot at a title this year. I really think so. Last game on deck. Bullpen game for the Phils. Matt Stram. I cut his innings projection down. He's priced like a regular starter, but he's not going to be making a full start. They turned him back into an opener here. So I think you're only getting an inning, maybe 2 innings out of Stram. What you could get there is a little bit of a limitation for the Diamondbacks lineup. They were still carrying a 5+ run total earlier today. And I agree, Lara. I like Arizona as a stack as well, going up against the it's easily the second best team in the East. Yeah, we all know about your ascendant Baltimore Orioles there and all their talent and their Colton Cowsers still to come, and their what's the best prospect in baseball, whatever the hell the other kid's name is. I'm brain dead by the end of all this writing and all these shows. You'll tell me. The infielder, the kid with all the talent. Anyway, yeah, Lara, I like the Diamondbacks as a stack here. What I worry about Jackson Holiday, thank you. What I worry about with going to Arizona a little bit is the idea of Strahm maybe taking the top off the lineup for that first time through the batting order. That's the one thing we care about here. He does have a very effective 32.5% strikeout rate, has been pretty good in this opener role, 3.20 xFIP, was kind of good as a full-time starter earlier in the season. He's given up a little bit of power, but they put him back toward a regular bullpen role and then have been using him as an opener here. So like I said, 1, maybe 2 innings. Maybe it dings the upside for the Diamondbacks, but it wasn't really coming through in Vegas. 5+ run total, a lot of cheap prices, a lot of hitters I like here. So I'm with you. I think I'm more enthusiastic about going to the Diamondbacks and just looking past that potential for Strahm to limit them. And there's always the idea that they hit a home run against him because he has given up some premium contact, and you do have some very hard hitting righties in that lineup. So I like the idea of going to like a Ketel Marte off the top. He's having a great year, by the way. 16% strikeout rate this year, getting on base at a 346 clip, 9 home runs, a 193 ISO, 19% better than average creating runs, and never all that expensive. 5,000 on DK, 3,600 as a premium second baseman, one of the better options at his position on a lot of nights. I feel like he doesn't get quite enough love. I'm not saying he's a star. I'm not saying he deserves too much more, but there's a little bit more love I think that the world could show Ketel Marte up at the top of this lineup. Productive player, hits from both sides of the plate. Corbin Carroll, I think, gets all the love that he needs, but he deserves it. 13 home runs, 19 stolen bases, 271 ISO, 159 WRC plus to lead the team now. Killer season for the rookie. 5,600, 4,300. You can play it if you can figure out how to afford it. He's expensive on the FanDuel slate, but nobody else really is in this lineup, so I think it's easy enough to get to him and include him just alongside Lourdes Gurriel, Christian Walker, both in the low to mid 4s here. That makes it easy to put these guys in your lineup. So I don't really worry about the pricing on the Arizona side here. I really like Lourdes Gurriel. Nice season for him as well. 301, 350, 545, a 244 ISO, 10 home runs on the year. So the hit tool was always in place. He lost his power last year, like we talked about a couple times. Single-digit home run output last year, only 5. So he's got double the home runs in basically less than half the plate appearances, or roughly half the plate appearances. Not a bad output from Lourdes Gurriel in his first season out in the desert. Christian Walker, big time power from the first base position, 12 home runs, 222 ISO, has been somewhat inconsistent this year, but I like his bat. I like that we're getting him at 4,100, 3,300. So you can definitely go to some Christian Walker, especially if you're stacking Diamondbacks. I think you want a lot of Christian Walker. Emmanuel Rivera has been very good, over 110 plate appearances. I don't know that I fully believe in it with Rivera. We're seeing a guy, 356, 391, 471, a 136 WRC plus in that sample. Only 1 home run, only a 115 ISO, so it's not like he's driving the ball. Last year, 359 plate appearances, 233, 292, 409. Actually, a better ISO and 12 home runs. But mixed production over the full sample there. So I don't really know who Emmanuel Rivera actually is yet. But if you get him hitting 5th there at those prices, multi-position eligible on the DK slate, you can definitely use him if you're going to Arizona. Pevin Smith, Gabriel Moreno, Jake McCarthy, Geraldo Perdomo, all playable parts down the bottom of the lineup here too. Smith, 172 plate appearances, 7 home runs. I was hoping he'd show us a little bit more. He had a decently highly regarded hit tool on the way up, but just never really put it together at the major league level. Is getting basically a full-time chance here, and has shown a touch of power upside, but we're not getting the hit tool production from Smith that I was hoping for. So it's a kind of mixed bag option for him, but he's very, very cheap down the bottom. Moreno is a productive catcher, 280, 318, 366, 85 WRC plus. You'd like to see that come up with some more counting stats, but the hit tool's there for a very young catcher who only costs 3,100, 2,500. Easy to go to there. McCarthy and Perdomo, up and down, big time up and down for both of these young players, but the idea of talent on both of them with mid-range power and mid-range speed for both of them. So I think you can mix and match them at the very least and use them to offset price, offset popularity with some of the other Diamondbacks. Philly side of things, I think we are aggressively attacking Tommy Henry, one of my favored spots on the day for bats. I assume they'll be popular as well. The obvious guys are a little bit high priced, but Kyle Schwarber for $52.35, probably a little discounted. I don't care that he's facing a lefty. I don't care that he is hitting 171. As I've said many times, I care about his 17 home runs, his 259 ISO, and all the crazy contact he makes. Particularly against a weak lefty like Tommy Henry, there's major upside there. So what we hope for is maybe goes a little bit under owned for whatever reason, because people overreact to same-handed pitching matchups sometimes. I doubt they will, but that's what I'm kind of hoping for. But Henry, 14.3% strikeout rate this year, 10.1% barrels, 5.64 xFIP, all those home runs, all that premium contact. There's every reason to throw bats at Tommy Henry. Nicky Castellanos hits between Schwarber and Harper as a righty. He's been super productive this year. Only 4,800, 3,400. Nice barrel rate, good hard hit rate. Very productive at the plate with a 131 WRC plus to lead the team, hitting 312, 358, 498. Sign me up for some Nick Castellanos. Trey Turner has struggled, but he's discounted for it at 5,400 and particularly 3,000 for Trey Turner on FanDuel. Come on. Look at the past season's FanDuel algorithm. Don't just price him based on an 82 WRC plus, 7 home runs, 9 steals this year. It's been bad this year. It's not been Trey Turner-esque, but it's in there. I don't think he just forgot how to play baseball during the offseason or after the WBC or whatever. So it's in there unless he's hurt, unless there's something truly going on. I'm just going to keep going back to it until it starts working out, until it fully turns around. So Trey Turner's on the board. JT Realmuto's on the board. He's been similarly down a little bit as well. 9 stolen bases is good. 5 home runs is good for a catcher. Only an 88 WRC plus. I'd like to see a little bit more from Realmuto, but for 4,800 where you need a catcher especially, I think he's fine. And then 2,800 on the FanDuel slate. It's another team that doesn't have a true first baseman right now. You get first base eligibility on Harper, and you get first and third base eligibility on Alec Bohm. But with no Rhys Hoskins here, there's no I got to use Realmuto in the util spot or instead of Hoskins so on the FanDuel slate. So you don't really worry about needing to just click him into that first base corner spot, first base catcher spot rather. So I think you can use him there if you want to. Obviously, you can use him alongside Harper at first and Bohm at third in a unique construction probably. There's a lot of different ways to put Philly together, and the bottom of that lineup is productive enough for those cheap prices that I do think you want to probably at least go 1 through 7, if not 8. We all know that Edmundo Sosa, 2,300, hits those odd duck home runs every now and then. Dalton Guthrie, dead minimum price, 2,000 on the DK slate, 21 on FanDuel. If you want to include him in the mix and match pieces, I guess that's fine. We haven't seen much at the major league level from Guthrie yet. 23 plate appearances this year, 28 last year, hit a home run last year, has yet to hit one this year. It's about all we've gotten from Guthrie so far. I don't remember that he's done much over time. I know his name because he's kicked around a little bit, but I don't know that he did much in the minors. Yeah, 27 now. 10 home runs was his peak in the minors. 21 steals that year. Yeah, didn't ever really come through in the minors, and now 27. So not really that much there for Dalton Guthrie, but as a dead minimum price offset, if you need him, he's there at the bottom of the lineup, assuming we get this version of the lineup. So effective enough, but 1 through 7 there for Philly's pretty good. 1 through 8 if you want to include Edmundo Sosa, and you're attacking a very bad pitcher there. So I think there's tons of upside for Philly. I like both teams, both offenses in this one. Don't need either pitcher. You don't need the bullpen game. Don't go to Matt Strahm. He's not priced appropriate for his inning or two on the DK slate where you would maybe do that. If he was 4,000 with the idea that he could come out and find you 5 strikeouts, maybe you could go to it. But at 79, there's not value there. He's not going to pitch. He's not going to accidentally pitch 3.5 innings tonight. Scroll over, take a look at the old pitching slate here. I'll jump back in and make sure see if there's any questions in the chat. What are you guys talking about over here? Nothing new since the Jackson Holiday news. All right, cool. I do appreciate you guys reminding me of that guy's name. It's funny because I was attempting to acquire him in a trade just yesterday. So when I say I've got a goldfish memory for things, like no joke, I used Jackson Holiday's name, I want to say 25 times yesterday, and just completely fell out of my head today. Ended up making a different deal in that Tino league. Not fully punting my season. I do still think I can claw my team back into maybe a cash spot, but it was just underperformance. And then when Judge went out, I kind of decided to maybe take a year, sell some parts, and rebuild. So I sold off a bunch of pitching and acquired myself Jackson Chourio, the top prospect from the Brewers, number 2 overall prospect in baseball. That kid, the next man up from the Guardians pitching staff. The kid who's supposed to be better than either Bobby or Logan Allen. Got him as well, Luis Robert, and some other moving parts. So I actually really like the trade that I made with my buddy Lou. Yeah, Chourio is really good, Larry. I'm excited about that. And playing in Double-A and holding his own at 19 years old, there's something to be said just for doing that. But a lot of speed, decent amount of power, good bat speed. So really happy with the deal I made. And Louis picked up Spencer Strider, Aaron Nola, and Sandy Alcantara for the money. So it was a good deal on both sides. He should chase a title with that staff. Gavin Williams, yeah. Yep, that was the one. Gav. Anybody ever play Red Dead? With the guy running around in the... there's an NPC who just throughout the game, over the course of like 20 years, I guess, of like game history, is missing his friend Gavin. And he just walks throughout the game world going, Gav! Gavin! Has anybody seen Gav? Somebody in chat knows what I'm talking about. That's what I think of every time I hear Gavin Williams' name. Anywho, pitchers that are on the current slate. We'll talk about Gavin Williams in one of these games sometime this year. He'll be up this year. But guys who are pitching today, Zach Eflin, Jesus Luzardo, Bryce Miller, James Paxton, Logan Webb. That's your pitching pool. I don't disagree with any of this at all. Let me sort what's his face out of there. So to me, this is the primary pitching pool. And then if you want to throw some value darts, Weaver's probably not even low priced enough at 81.75 by comparison to like Liberator, Greinke. I don't even want to say any of these other names. These are your value guys to me. Probably in there. Those three guys. Weaver, Liberator, and Greinke. And then these are your prime guys. It's a fairly straightforward pitching slate. There's not a lot of mystery here. I'll see what ownership looks like across town. But I'm enthusiastic about these two spots if they end up a little bit under-owned. Obviously, as we heard, this spot is probably going to be super popular given the pricing and the projection and the matchup there for Paxton and just his performance. He's been lights out since coming back. So that makes a ton of sense to me. I'll have some, but that's one I don't totally mind leaving on the table a little bit. That's like, if he's super popular, that's like, to me, maybe an own but undercut spot where you can pick up some value with some of these other guys. Logan Webb, I think, is a dynamite spot as well. So any one of those top pitchers there, anyone from this group is not a mistake in their matchup for their prices. So you can roster those guys and just kind of only focus on those guys while throwing a couple shares toward these value pitchers on DK and just see what kind of combinations you can make of these guys. It's very pricey to do, but I think there's a lot of value on the board today, hitter-wise, so maybe you can get to it. Depends on what comes up in the hitting combinations. Obviously, easier to just sit and live in this level on the FanDuel slate. Can roster Henry because I'm a masochist. That would be one day to accept some punishment. That is for sure. Who would I stack in a DK single entry? I'll tell you what, Dustin. Let me do this. The screen's going to go dark for a second here again. One more time, we'll jump back to what will probably be in some form kind of like this on the site sooner than later. So if we're looking for DK, both of these teams at the top, obviously projection-wise, matchup-wise against Caprillion and Dunning, and getting value in terms of where they're priced relative to some of these other guys in like points per dollar kind of a basis. I think both of those teams are very, very strong. You're paying through the nose to get to Texas. They're equally strong, but a lower overall home run rating than either of these two teams. So for me, Tampa and LA make a ton of sense if you want to just, it's the value rating here is like a point. Like I said, it's a points per dollar. So it's not necessarily saying this is the cheapest team and where you go for value. I think Stochastic does it a little bit more along those lines, the way they calculate some of the value ratings, where they're just trying to tell you like cheapest team. Or cheapest team with some kind of reflection of the upside. Obviously, they're not just telling you the prices, where this is more a straight line points per dollar rating. So with that in mind, I expect both those spots will be popular, but both of those are dynamite matchups. If you wanted a less popular option, maybe the Giants against Liberator. There's enough upside there, mid-level home run rating, decent value rating, maybe. But there's, it probably wouldn't be the teams under that. Certainly the Red Sox against Seabold is obviously a dynamite spot as well. Monster home run ratings for them. He's the bottom ranked out of all the pitchers. They're decent enough values, better values on FanDuel in terms of the pricing. The projection, as we talked about at the top of the show, drops down here. Like LA's pushed up a little bit by the 2 stars and then the quality with guys like Renfroe and Drury toward the bottom of the lineup. Tampa and Texas are kind of pulled up by all their quality up and down the lineup, where Boston's a little bit more top heavy. And one of those pieces up top is Justin Turner, who kind of is a good projection, but not a great projection. So just on raw points projection, which is what this is the average of just the raw points projection, they dip a little bit, even though it's a killer spot. So there's going to be some interpretation involved here, and I'll make sure to explain all of it when if and when I put it up on the site. Yeah, this is kind of how I would approach the slate today, and this is kind of how I'm thinking about posting the stuff. Am I still releasing the home run model here? Yeah, the home runs are up on the site. Do you mean in like on the show? Like, am I going to show who's going to hit a home run tonight? I can. But yeah, every day the home run picks, the ones that I make just individually, semi for fun, the fun of it, semi to show where the best plays are always on the site, and then the power index is always on the site. Jeff says Boston's popular. Boston will be popular, only mini stacking them. Yeah, I feel like Boston's going to be pretty popular tonight on both sides. Steven, thank you, buddy. I appreciate it. You're doing a kick-ass job in the chat and showing up and hanging out with me every day too, Steven. I appreciate that, and I appreciate everybody who's here. I really do. So let's take a look at some home runs real quick, and we are 524. So I think we've determined that I will go for 90 minutes no matter how many games we've got on the slate. Let's look at some of these home runs. Kyle Schwarb's up at the top. So like I said, I don't worry lefty-lefty with Schwarb's at all, really, especially not against a lefty like that. Just not concerning. Rafael Devers, Adam Duvall. Duvall was my overall home run pick for the day on the site. Standing by that in the home run column, assuming he's still in the lineup. Jorge Soler, nice little mark, but he's always got a pretty good one. Harper, Yoshida. So you're seeing a good amount of power for the Red Sox, decent amount for the Phillies top end. Little sneaky power here for Seattle in that spot against Luzardo. Those are, two good power hitters with sneaky power marks. So maybe if you are looking to Seattle, and Jared Kelenic there as well. So maybe if you are thinking some Seattle contrarian stacks, there's a little bit of support there for that in terms of the power. But I think what you see there is probably maybe they hit a home run against Luzardo and it's a 3-run total for them and they strike out 12 times and he still has a good game. That kind of feels like what Seattle would do tonight. So maybe these are more individual players than telling you where to stack. And that's always how I like to look at the home runs. Arcatel's a Josh Young pick. Not a bad one at all. Definitely think that's in play. They were kind of landing more in the mid-range overall, but he's been smoking the ball this year as we touched on. Let's see where he landed. Yeah, only a 6.49. Anderson, not filthy for home runs. 31.6% hard hits. 86.7 miles an hour average exit velo. This is your problem. Your average exit velo, your hard hits, your barrels. So he doesn't give up enough premium contact to support a great rating, but I don't think the pick is wrong. Josh Young obviously has been mashing it. Kelenic's out of the lineup. Okay. Caballero in for Kelenic. All right. So, I mean, they're giving Kelenic the night off against a good lefty. That makes some sense. Bit of a downgrade to the lineup overall, especially if you were thinking, like, get to the bullpen and then you've got Kelenic. But, yeah, little ding to their lineup, but we weren't going there all that aggressively. So, yeah, just on that Texas side of things, Anderson has, over time, been pretty good at limiting exit velo. Only 4.9% barrels last year, 85 miles an hour average exit velo, only a 1.98% home run rate. Year before, 87 miles an hour average exit velo, 3.84. More home runs this year because he was giving up more barrels, a little bit higher launch angle, a little bit more hard hits that year. So that combined to get the barrel rate up a little bit. But yeah, not the greatest spot against Anderson in terms of the home run equity, but I love the upside for run creation for Texas. I think they're in a killer spot. They're just very expensive. All right, fellas, that's it. I'm going to cut myself off at approaching 90 minutes here because I got to build some lineups. Good luck out there, guys. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe. Everything is up on Rotoscouts. Chuck says Kelenic's falling apart of late. Yeah, he didn't have the greatest May and into June. It came roaring to life at the beginning of the season. I think that's the kind of player he's going to be. Just over time, I think he's going to be very up and down. But I believe in the talent. I think what we saw earlier in this year, in a non-sustained over, the full course of a season way. But I think those kind of peaks are definitely going to be in play with Kelenic going forward. Anywho, guys, that's it. We're getting out of here. I'm actually hitting the end broadcast button this time. Hit the like, hit the subscribe. Appreciate everybody hanging out. Come on back tomorrow. Everything else is up on Rotoscouts, and I'll be in the Discord for any questions, anything like that. See you. Good luck.